Welcome to The Decision from Nashville EO, where you will hear the rest of the story after tough decisions were made by entrepreneurs who faced adversity and lived to tell about it.
Hi, Robert Hartline here with Decision, along with Eric Jackson, Ginger Jones. This is brought to you by EO in Nashville. This is where entrepreneurs go and tell stories about past decisions that they were stuck with, and you went to form, you needed some help, you asked for some experience share. What we hope to do through this podcast is to share stories of not only the anguish and drama that happens in our businesses where we have to be in a mode where we got to make some decisions. It's not working. I need to do something. And you come to your forum for help. I need an experience share. What we hope to do here is not only talk about the experience of sharing, what happened afterwards. You know, at the end of the day, 3 years later, what was the final outcome? And that's what the purpose of our podcast here is today. And you are our president, and we get to have you here sharing this story of a past decision you had to make. So, Ginger, what was that experience?
So I think there has been a lot in my time in forum. Probably the most pivotal in my life was the decision to sell my business. And honestly, after that, I've listened to a couple of your episodes so far, and I know y'all have talked about there's the decision, but there's also the after. And so I'm very grateful for my forum because it's one thing to decide that, but then it's another to live the life after. And you talked about what that was like for you.
First up, before you continue, how long ago was it did you started your business, and what was your business?
I started my business in November of 2009, and it was called Jones Therapy Services. It was a pediatric therapy company. Then I grew that to 10 locations and exited in January of 2022.
And when did you join EO during?
I joined in 15.
Okay.
So my business was 4 years old. Is that right? I'm bad at that.
I don't know.
Now, when you started your business, did you have a vision to growing it to a certain stage, or what? Are you like a lot of people? Were you just kind of like winging it, or
yeah. Totally winging it. I'm that E-Myth girl that baked pies and started a business. I was a speech language pathologist, I still am, and so I was the technician that started a business that had no business training or background whatsoever. And I think hard work, a lot of grit. When you get better, you can't help but get bigger. I heard the founder of Papa John's say that once. And I think that's what happened. Like, I kept getting better, my team kept getting better, and so we kept getting bigger. So there was not intentionality from the start to have an exit like I did, but it just became that over time. And I think the nature of my business was not sustainable for a sole proprietor. And this is why the hospitals are getting rolled up, and that kind of business model is for just one person to be running it. I didn't think was very sustainable. So,
and 10 locations, where were they?
We had 6 in Middle Tennessee, 2 in Knoxville, 1 in Chattanooga, and 1 in Crossville, Tennessee.
And I always find it interesting when you ask someone about when they start their business. When did you start realizing that you needed to scale?
Mine was pretty early on, and I'm so passionate about the work we did, and I loved it. And so for me, if you tell me there's a kid with special needs that needs help and they can't get it, I'm going to find a way to make that happen. And so once my caseload was full and I still was getting all these referrals, I was like, well, let me call this person and see if she wants to pick up kids on the weekend. That's literally how it kind of started. And so I think that to me kind of goes back to that Simon Sinek, your why. Because to me, it was like always help more kids. And that was why I would open another location. That's why I'd bring on somebody else. But ultimately, that's why I sold too, because it got to a point where, like I said, it was not sustainable for me. And to have that realization that more kids can be helped. Like, I've created this thing and I've grown it. And I've gotten it to where I lifted the heavy boulder to here. But if I want to do this with the heavy boulder, somebody else needs to take it.
What about it did you not like?
About my company? Well, I was in network with health insurance companies, so I danced with the devil every day. I feel like when you told me your story, like Sprint was kind of your equivalent of Blue Cross Blue Shield for me. Is like, honestly, they called the shots.
So they got to tell you what you were how you were gonna operate.
That was right. You had an unattended partner.
Yes.
Yeah. That you had to have to live, and you had to have to survive.
Right.
And was it just that, or was there other components too that?
I think there was other components. I mean, I didn't like people problems. Does anybody like people problems?
You had people problems? Eric, do you have?
No, I never had.
That is, guys.
Tell me more.
Man, that is such a.
It's unfortunate.
Yeah. I mean, I loved my employees, all of them.
Every single one. I think for the most part, when I reflect back, 98% of them were like salt of the earth people that I loved and people that I so enjoyed working with. They made me better. You know, the 2% really will get you.
Yeah.
And like now in the space I'm in, I can give people a lot of grace for some of the things that really hurt me. You know, like I think about in early COVID, like some of my employees were so amazing and some were horrible to me.
Yeah.
And, but now it's like, you know, everything happens the way it's supposed to. I truly believe that. And so now I can go, you know, that was the first time for some of them living through, I mean, I hadn't lived through a global pandemic, but even like an economic crisis or, you know, 9/11, I was an adult, but some people that worked for me weren't yet. Yeah. So, so I can look back now with a lot more grace. I didn't necessarily have a lot in the middle of it.
Yeah. So, COVID changed my business tremendously. And I've kept telling people that if this pandemic hasn't changed you at the end of when it's all over,
right?
Like when it's all done, there's going to be those that were changed and those that are the same.
Right.
And you've just wasted a tremendous opportunity for massive change. So I know you sold your business in pandemic. Did that create pressure to sell? It was pressure for everyone.
Right? Pressure.
And I know from conversations and, you know, reaching out to the chapter challenges you were seeing with having a workplace totally changed, right?
Right.
And how to work with the insurance company. Talk about that challenge.
So pressure, yes, all kinds of pressure. Pressure to sell, no. What it did, it helped me make a decision, which is perfect for us to talk about here. Because I think when I think about decisions, I've been thinking about this because Eric and I have talked a lot about what y'all are doing here. And it's like, for me, sometimes the lack of inspired action helps me make a decision. And then sometimes I got to get out of this helps me make a decision. And so for me, 2019 was probably one of my best years ever. The reason that was because 2016, 2017, and 2018 were incredibly challenging for me financially in the business. And so 2019, I'm like, I can do this, you know, and I have climbed the mountain and I'm
making money.
And it was a year like my company got awards. I mean, we were on the Inc. 5000 for the 4th time. And I was like most admired CEO and woman of influence. I mean, somebody looked at me and said, "You're having your best year ever." And I was like, I am. And she didn't even know half of it, you know? And so then by March, what was it, the second week of March 2020, to be losing 75% of our revenue, cutting my staff's pay by 40%, and then funding the other 60 personally. I wasn't sleeping. I did not take good care of myself. It was the first time in my life that I honestly did not remember the last time I showered. I don't know why, I felt I needed to take all of that on. But I did. Telehealth wasn't approved in Tennessee, to give this some context. So some of my friends in other states, it's like, oh, kids can't come to your clinic, just put them on the internet. We couldn't do that here in Tennessee. And so, not eating, then I would decide to eat like 5 cookies. And, that's not good. And one day I literally sat back down at my desk. Who knows? Maybe I'd showered 48, 72 hours before. I don't know. And I said, I'm going to get my company through this. And I'm going to buy myself those Valentino shoes. And then I'm going to sell it. And I think it was just, I didn't have anything to prove anymore. Like I had, those 16, 17, and 18 felt like, I can do this. I can walk up the mountain in the snow and, and I was just like, I don't need to prove this to anybody anymore.
Was there a moment where you had to decide that your lifelong passion was no longer?
I'm not okay with that still right now, Larry.
Okay. Sorry.
No,
pick that scab there.
No, but I mean, that's a really good question. I think where I am now is that will always be the thing that fills my bucket and makes my heart so happy.
You're going to do that whether it's through the company or not.
Right. And so now it's kind of how can I create, how can I continue to do work I love? And I'll find a way. I met a guy this morning that we were talking about. Curry Ingram is a private school in Nashville for children that have unique learning needs. And his kids go there and I'm like, oh, I love that. But what I hate about it is that so many kids need that experience, but it's 30-something thousand a year. And he said, if you ever meet somebody that needs help at that school, let me know. And it's that's what I want to do is how do I'm around people like that and I find ways to get what I know works for kids into the hands of all kids. Because that's one, I loved that about my business. We took all insurances. So it didn't matter if could afford it or not. You got it. And so that's really important to me.
And you can do your purpose without having it be a business.
Right.
Right.
And that comes with a lot of ties, a lot of pressure, a lot of sacrifices from family, sacrifices from you.
Right.
Who are you? And I'm sure we have a lot of alignment with a very similar selling story. And did you feel like when you were going through that, did you look at it as an obstacle?
The selling?
Yeah.
Well, y'all know this because you know my story. I mean, it became an obstacle because I was in a deal that fell through. And so yes. So initially it didn't seem like it. It felt like this is this amazing thing. And to go back to when I was talking to you about making a decision, for me, I don't know if this ever happens to you, but sometimes it's I need to act on that, but for whatever reason, I'm not. And we're all livers and shakers, right? So I listen to that when I don't feel like I don't want to do that right now. To me, that's part of the decision. Maybe I don't need to act. Maybe I need to sit. And maybe I need to listen, and maybe I need to quiet my mind so that I can get a better answer. So anyway,
can I point out something that I think is interesting, just the differences between genders, in that my wife has a tremendous sense of a gut, right? And I find it so valuable to bring her into my decision because she gets the gut better than I do.
Yeah.
And I just wonder if you have somewhat of a different advantage maybe of having a better gut of what decisions to take. We're so logical, right? Sometimes versus I could see, did you have a gut feeling about selling that was strong for you?
Yes. And I felt like everything lined up. And that was one of the hardest things about the deal that fell through. Is it felt like, and I'm a person of faith. It felt like all these things in my life that I wanted. Because at some point in my business, my business wasn't serving me. It felt like I was serving the business. When you got 10 locations and that many employees, that many clients, I had kind of decided that that's not the life for me anymore. That was never going to be a lifestyle business. And so when I decided that, for me, it felt like God had shown me, here's this thing, and it lines up with everything you've been asking for. It lines up with everything you've been praying for. And then it felt like it got taken away. And so when you say, was it a struggle? Like, I don't know. Maybe if the first deal would have been the one that was finalized. Yeah, there's due diligence and there's talking to attorneys and accountants and all that stuff. And I didn't love that. But for me, the struggle of, bringing my leadership team into the fold that, I'm going to sell this company. You guys are going to have a new boss. And then that going away.
Yeah, can we take a few steps back to the point of the decision? Like, did you bring this decision to sell the company? Did you bring that to your forum?
No, not in like, should I sell? Because they had lived that life with me of like, somebody's going to offer you that much money for this. Yes, you need to take, to them, and to me, it was obvious, right? For the reason I told you, it didn't seem sustainable for me as a sole proprietor and the lifestyle I wanted. Where they really came into play was I got, that deal fell through, and y'all know the story about the sauna and the Jesus card, right? The next buyer showed up 2 days later.
But they don't know the story.
They don't know the story. Yeah.
Tell the story.
Tell the story about
Tell the story.
Yes,
I tried to gloss over
I
that.
know. It's my favorite story.
Not everyone was in the room when you told it. And it's an amazing video to watch.
Yeah.
But if you could tell the story.
It's very raw, right? So the deal fell through, and I think it was spent 7 months. Eric knows a lot of this because he helped me when I was losing my mind. And I don't know about y'all, but for any of you spend that much time doing that, and I felt foolish. It was like, oh, did they ever want to do this deal? And speaking of my forum, I remember Neil looked at me and said, what are you going to do if they don't do this? And I couldn't even answer the question. Like, I was like, I couldn't, like, I knew, like, my jaws started, but it's like my forum could see that, right? And I didn't want to believe it, but they were like, deals don't take this long. Attorneys don't take this long to write lease agreements, And
were you doing the thing, Ginger, where you were spending the money in your mind or imagining?
I think it was the lifestyle. I was already like, I'm not going to have pressure. I was already hanging out with my kids, like that. And so not the money. It was that I was going to have an enormous amount of pressure off my back. Yeah. Yeah. So the deal falls through. I cried a lot. And even though, like I say, I knew everything happens for a reason. It's like still in that moment, it's hard. So I do what I do, and that's like throw myself into like reading and journaling. And I was reading this book called The Power of Your Subconscious Mind. And the sauna is also like a very, that's where I like a meditative place for me. And so I'm reading this book in the sauna, and it was talking about you can't just think these thoughts and this feeling of like doing the deal. You have to feel it. You have to feel it like in your bones. And so I highlighted these things, and I don't know why I put the book down, and I just 3 times in my mind, nothing said to do 3 times, which somebody later said that's like Holy Trinity. 3, and I was like, oh, wow. Anyway, and I thought, signing the deal, like I literally pictured myself signing the deal. I pictured myself like hugging my husband, Mark, and I pictured clicking on my bank and seeing that amount. And I did it 3 times. Yeah. Right?
Right now, I'm like, I literally feel it.
Yeah. So I've just wrapped up 2 weeks of crying, and here I am in the sauna, and I pictured that 3 times. I closed my eyes. I'm in the sauna by myself, and I heard like this voice say, it'll be sweeter. And then I said, was that God or was that me? Because surely God sounds more profound than it'll be sweeter. Like it sounds like a very Ginger thing to say, it'll be sweeter. And so in my head, I said, is that God or is that Ginger? And when I looked down, and there was this card that had fallen in the slats of the sauna. And so I took the chiseled into my highlighter. I just was like, I got to see what that is. There's usually not something in the cracks of the sauna. And I took the highlighter and flipped it out, and it was a picture of Jesus. And it was somebody's obituary on the back, which his name was Eugene. But to have just said, was that God or was that me? And then be so moved to pull something random out of the sauna. And so I just sobbed. Somebody opened up the door to come in the sauna, and she just like left me alone. I was like, anyway, and then I met the new buyer 2 days later, literally 2 days later. which I didn't even remember till I went back on Marco Polo to give the EO talks. And I'm watching the Marco Polo to my friend because I wanted to share it. And I'm like, I watched the next Marco is me like in Kentucky walking to have dinner with this person who ended up buying my company.
Wow. That is, and you placed yourself in a situation to be open to what is there. You imagine it and you probably just kind of let it go and it just.
Yeah.
happened.
Which I feel like that's still my work is like quiet my mind, open my heart and make room. Make room for like, especially now, make room for what's next, but the thing that's so crazy, like, I'm a big fan of like justice. And so I was so mad about that deal that fell through. Right. And so I would say, I'd talk to my attorney out and be like, can we sue them? And he's like, Ginger, you got more money. Let that thing go. What's crazy. That's what's crazy. It's like, the reason it had to fall through is because it wasn't for me. And my best girlfriend at the time was like, you're blocking it. She was like, I know you don't want to hear this, but you're blocking it. When it was like getting struck.
I wonder if losing that deal, how did that shape you?
I think now I can just trust more that if it's for me, it's coming to me.
So it's okay to lose something.
Yeah.
And see what's next. Yeah.
From my perspective, when you were going through that, you took it far better than I ever could have.
Yeah.
It was hard to watch as a friend, and I know that it was a struggle, but yeah, you powered right on. It was great to see.
Thanks.
So you closed the deal end of 2020?
Early January 12th, 2022 at like 2:30 something. Times two. Yeah.
Wow. And so tell us about, was there any decisions that you needed help with through the sale process that your form for help?
So ironically, when I tell you that like I had this deal that fell through and then I meet somebody 2 days later, as the letter of intent is, we're kind of rocking and rolling, and a former buyer reaches out, not the one that fell through, and they make an offer more lucrative than the one I'm about to sign. And I'm on retreat with my forum.
Wow.
Again, like God's timing. And I'm like, what? Like that's the thing, is to go like, at this point is maybe a month ago, I am crying myself to sleep because this thing slipped through my hands. And here I am in Charleston, South Carolina. And somebody in my forum was like, you're sitting here just having drinks and 2 people are like at this point fighting over your business. Like, how does that even happen? So my forum, oh my gosh, I will forever. I love them for a million reasons, but at some point I had to make a decision. And when I could tell I was getting to the point of like pissing both of them off, both of the buyers, right? Because I'm like, well, yes, what about this? I texted my forum probably at 9:00 at night and said, who's got lunch tomorrow and could do a Zoom? And every one of them got on a Zoom with me. And I had made a spreadsheet of like, here's this deal, here's how I personally feel about this deal, this buyer. And they just let me walk through it. And then they were like, here's what I hear. Obviously they didn't tell me what to do, but they helped me see what I couldn't see. And
well, this is a beautiful story, and I would like to hear the story. What is it like to sell your company? If you could walk through what that experience was like, because I think a lot of people assume or think it's going to be wonderful, and it wasn't like that for me. But how was it for you?
The process, like due diligence, is painful. And I remember the first time I ever talked to somebody about selling my company, the first phone call I made was to Bill Kimberlin, who I guess was just here. And he said, the best advice I could give you is don't drop the ball on what your company needs you to do, because a lot of times they will like reevaluate right before close. And if you're the chief marketing officer and you haven't been marketing for 6 months. So I remembered that. But here's the thing, that's incredibly hard. Like running your company while you're trying to sell it?
Oh, yeah.
That was hard. That was really mentally. it's not like you got one foot out the door, but you're kind of like, I'm doing all this stuff because I'm about to pass this on. But then knowing that it might not happen, the deal might fall through, right? Like, I mean, that was just mentally crazy for me. But so due diligence was crazy. My favorite thing is not to get on calls with attorneys and numbers people. And Mark, my husband, was so great. I just felt like inadequate a lot because they're speaking over me. And, one time before I got on a call, I told Mark, just get nervous. And he was like, they want to buy something you created, and not to speak down to them at all, but he was like, that's an attorney that works for a firm, And so just remember that. And my attorney would like give me these pep talks. It was awesome. So, then there's the part, which I'm sure you know this too, like your team of how do you manage the emotions of all that? And for my team, the deal that fell through, we were going to be the platform company. The deal that went through, we were rolled up. And so the difference in my leaders, who I love so much to this day, they had created all these policies and processes that first thing, it was going to carry forward. In the next deal, it was like Jones Therapy Services is becoming part, so talk about them feeling jerked around. And those are the last people I would ever want to jerk around. And so that was hard for me. And I also kept them out of the fold for a little bit. It felt so uncomfortable to me. It felt longer, but I didn't want them to think, what if that deal fell through? And they were like, why does Ginger keep wanting to sell this? And why won't anybody buy it? So there was that piece of it. And then there's the piece of like, this has been me. And this has been 12 years of my, I worked a lot on removing my self-worth from that. I don't know that I ever did 100% of that job, but so there's that emotional work that we have to do, especially because I wasn't sticking around in this deal.
So how did that feel like?
Honestly, I think I texted you. I will know. This is like the funniest text I've probably ever sent. I had a girls' trip planned. I wouldn't, in my perfect world, I would have gone out of town with like my husband and my kids right after. But you never know when the deal is going to close. And so I had a girls' trip planned with women's presidents, and so literally signed the deal on the plane the next day to, where did I go? Miami or something like that. Fort Lauderdale. Yeah. I checked the bank account and it's like, there it is, And
did you feel like you were in the sauna looking at it? Did you have the same, was it like the same day? Was it a deja vu moment? Or
it was like
similar or the same or totally different?
I don't know that you can ever say what that was like. I mean, it's like, it happened.
No.
And so I get to, all my girlfriends had flown down the day before, and I get there and I completely get overserved because they're like, she's our company, And so I remember getting in the room and I have like 100 text messages, 100 like Facebook, you way to go. And I remember my text to you was like, being rich with no responsibilities hits different.
Wow.
And it was just, I think that was the alcohol talking, and I didn't have, I didn't have kids to put to sleep that night and everything, but I was just like, oh my gosh, like it was crazy. But anyway, so yeah, I did, there's so many emotions. And then I went back to work, for a couple of weeks.
So worked for them for a minute.
Yeah, for like 3 weeks. And that was, it wasn't like I can't work for anybody else. I think that they came in and they wanted to make some changes, and that was their right to do it. It was their company, And so it was a little bit like, my style would have been to slow roll it a little bit more. So I think that was, not that was wrong. I think that that's what made it a little bit more like, oh, okay, it's cool. Like 3 weeks, I'm good. Like I want to go hang out with my kids and my husband. So.
And you had a fortunate that you became president right after you sold the company. That is,
which is funny,
beautiful transition, because
I put my name in the hat in 2019.
We've talked about this. Doing what we do, we're addicted to the stress.
Yeah.
And it's just,
constantly looking for more.
It's always that. And to be able to jump right in and have responsibilities, right? And a commitment and a team. And you got that transition. That was a beautiful time for you to do that switch.
Yeah. And I think the most beautiful thing was it kind of immediately showed me what it's like to solve problems when you're kind of at arm's length of them. And again, I thought I had done that work in my company, right? Like I read the 4 agreements. I don't take things personally, right? Like I still do. But even though I think I had made progress, but EO, being president of EO, was really given me a gift in that there's problems. It's a large organization. It's and I can get on a call and I'm not emotional about it. It's like, let's just fix it. Like, how do we move forward?
Yeah, I've seen that in my own business, giving away responsibility to others, and EO Nashville especially, I think, works that way. You've got so many people around you that can solve problems. So just knowing that I don't have to mow the grass. There's somebody else to do that.
This is a really good opportunity for us to talk about because there's a lot of EO members, and I was one. I wasn't on the board. I wasn't involved. I was a member, and maybe talk to a member who goes to functions, right? He goes to forum and does his thing, right? Her thing. What is it like to be more involved, the next level up? Talk about that, because I'm starting to realize it's different than working with people you pay.
Yeah. I get so much energy from that board. So much energy. It's the smart people who are busy. You were busy, and you were there yesterday morning. How do we make this thing better? So I would say, for me, the more I have given to EO, the more I have gotten. That's the simplest way to put it. And now I feel like I've got friends in every city, and there is this thing about EO that's just kind of when you're in, you're in. And so I know I could call up any of those people and ask without judgment for help I needed, and yeah. But I think that you can get that at your forum level for sure, but it's just like anything else multiplied.
But how do they get involved with?
Well, you could join a committee, and first you could join a committee, and then you could mentor
just ask.
Yeah,
there's plenty of ways to help.
That's another great thing about the organization.
Well, how did you get roped in?
I think I was on a committee, but I don't even think I knew what I was doing. I remember Arnie was learning chair, and
you were learning chair.
Committee, and then I became learning co-chair, and then learning chair, and then membership, and but that's the neat thing too. Is like it's a pretty intentional path to leadership. Eric can tell you because he did it too.
Well, how does that translate? Going into leadership with a bunch of leaders, in transitioning some of that skill from EO into like the workplace. What would be the gingers to talk about, and who is Ginger as a leader with this experience? How did you bring that into the business?
I may not answer your question, but I'll tell you my experience. I don't know if it's where you meant to go, but one of the things I noticed, and to me, this is everybody would say being president of EO was the best thing I ever did. And I was like, okay, sounds good, I'll do it. But I didn't really get it. But for me, there was a time in the fall. I forget you both know this, but I don't want to share too much because it's confidential stuff. But the emotions at the board meeting were high, and you both have led staff meetings, and I think you know that it's easy to pick up on other people's energy. But I worked really hard to not. It's like center myself. Then I'm talking about staff meetings in my company, and I got really good at that. Like I could deliver messages, and I was okay. I had this protective wall around me. That's a lot harder to do with leaders. And so in those 2 board meetings, I was like, and then it made me nervous for the next one. And you're not your best self when you're leading like that. And so I'm still learning the lessons, but I look back and think, oh, that was really interesting. And I like being challenged, and I like being stretched, and I don't like being the smartest one in the room. And so EO is a great place to never be the smartest one in the room.
And you probably saw in that transition, and this is I sold my company, same very similar scenario. Wasn't as successful as yours, but that's okay. But we're not. Who's keeping score? Really? What's so crazy? I sell the business, and EO event. Mark Deutschman's telling the story about selling Village real estate. He started his company same freaking year I started it, and he's got this magical journey. And I'm hearing it, and I'm like, I didn't have that. but where I was going with that is what I've noticed after I sold the business, and I'm wondering if you're seeing this, how does it feel to be a rookie again? How does it feel to be a rookie?
That's a great question.
That is a really good question. I think if I didn't, it could be a really a breeding ground for imposter syndrome. But I think I have really good people around me, and I think I just don't let it go there.
Yeah.
But yeah, especially being an EO, it's like I remember I went to GLC.
Yeah.
And I Marco Polo'd my girlfriend. I should like have just my girlfriend. I should just play all my Marco Polos. It's like my diary. I said, here I am. I just sold my company for X amount of dollars, and there's lots of women here who just sold their third company for $100 million. And so you think here's the shit, and then it's like, turns out like that's just another day at the office. Yeah.
I was sitting at GLC with this guy sitting at the table. We get having this conversation. The subject of Costa Rica comes up, and he has auto dealerships, and he hears me, and he's like, "Well, I have 5 dealerships there," and then I find out he has 130 dealerships throughout
Central America.
I'm like,
yeah,
I was like,
5 in Costa Rica.
I mean,
right, yeah.
I was on a freaking Southwest flight, and he had his own plane. It's like different levels of it, which could make you feel like maybe you're not enough,
right?
But they were there,
right?
And we're just on the journey along to learn. And it's not like I'm inspiring to be what he is, but I'm inspiring to be in the room with these people and learn from what they know and grow from what they know. And that's what and I'm thankful that I got on the board to actually even entertain going to global. Global changed my whole outlook, completely woke me up, and I needed it. I needed to be, re-inspired in what's next. And it was a great space and time. And it just, one thing to add, if you sell your company, stay in EO, because the next thing that's coming is on the next bend of the journey that we're on. And you may need this group. And I just, something that also showed up to me is like, I'm starting to wonder, when we get kind of old and there is no business anymore, don't you kind of wonder, like, is there going to be like a elder O or something? Or
I've thought a lot about this.
Ancient O, or
there's this void that we don't know about at some point. And I've always wondered when I'll know if it's time to step away. I had that when I was in Rotary for years, and it just became
But there's going to have to be an organization for us, because we're going to want to reminisce and tell the stories.
We just need to start one.
I was going to say, I think this is the genesis of it right now.
Well, Ginger, I want to say thank you for your time. Thank you for your leadership with EO, and thank you for your story. And I hope if you're out there and you're thinking about selling your company, or you're in the middle of a deal and you're just got to, oh my gosh, is there hope? There is hope. And you also have someone to talk to. How would someone reach you now?
Oh, I was going to say, I could send you my Jesus card. I made copies for my forum and that book,
By the way, that book, you gave me the copy of that book that you were reading, right?
Yeah.
I still haven't read it.
And for my forum, person. I highlighted the 2 things that were, that was in the sauna. I got it for my forum. And you're like an honorary member of our forum. Okay, so somebody wanted to find me. My email is ginger@gingerjones.com. Obviously, you can find me at gingerjones.com. I'm Ginger Jones on Instagram. You can just see pictures of my kids and my cute husband. And that's probably it.
You are awesome. Thank you.
She's always got the best Instagram feeds.
Yes, you do. Yes, you do.
I'm going to put y'all on there today.
Well, here we go. We're going to do it. Once again, this is The Decision by EO Nashville. You can see all of our episodes on Spotify, iTunes, anywhere you may want to consume a podcast. You can also see us on video on YouTube. Thanks for watching, and have a wonderful day.
Thanks for listening to the Decision Podcast by Nashville EO. We'll see you again next time, and be sure to click subscribe to get future episodes.